everybody, and welcome back to CERMIC FIREARMS. I'm Alex, and I'm glad you could be joining us today. Today we're going to be looking at my 5.56 XI, SIG Sauer's attempt at the ACR. But first, a quick update. I want to address why I haven't done a video in half a year. Late into last summer, my hunting property was caught up in a wildfire, and it took a lot of my attention away from any side projects that I had going on. I've also had some other personal issues that I will leave as personal for the time being, but it left it very difficult to make time. Now, on to the SIG. This happens to be a very rare variety of the SIG 5.56 XI made for the Susan G. Komen Breast Cancer Awareness Foundation. Nah, I'm just teasing. A bit of history on this specific rifle. I picked it up from a friend of mine who had it customized to her liking. As a critic, I can understand if you want to customize your firearm, but I would just ask for something cooler than pink. But with just a quick cut, it's back to its correct black configuration. And we can discuss this rifle in a little bit more detail. I would like to touch on Brandon Herrera's video. I would highly recommend going and checking out his video where he covers his SIG 5.56. Title of the video is If Rolex Built an AK. Going a little into the deeper history surrounding this rifle. In 1978, SIG started work on a successor rifle to the SG 510 pictured here. They chose to ditch the heavier 7.62 NATO cartridge in favor of the lighter 5.56 round. Kinda odd how everybody ditched heavier rounds for lighter rounds, and now we are going back to the heavier rounds. Just a bit of commentary there. In 1983, the SG 541 was released, shortly thereafter being renamed to the 550, with the 551 being the Carmine designation. The 5.56, which is ironically unrelated to the ammo, was the American version, with parts being manufactured and assembled in New Hampshire to meet U.S. import requirements. Fast forward to 2014, the 5.56 XI was released with improvements over the standard 5.56. One of those improvements is the charging handle, which we will get to momentarily. You can also change the caliber a lot easier than you could with the original 5.56, though I was unable to determine how they made that change. You can get these rifles in either the 5.56 223 chambering or the 7.62 by 39 chambering. Although it was my understanding that you could also get these in 300 blackout, but I was unable to verify that. If any of you have speculation on that, please feel free to leave it in the comment section down below. This one conveniently happens to be chambered in 5.56. As such, it takes the standard Snag type AR magazines. One neat little thing about this rifle is that the serialized part is actually the upper, not the lower, unlike most AR products. I don't know why it is as such, being that something like the Jackal, which is a very similar product, has an unserialized upper, with the lower being the important part that you have to go fill out paperwork for. This did lead me to speculate if I could remanufacture a lower for this that would meet personal requirements and have it still be legal. I would probably still would have serialized it just to avoid angering our ATF overlords. Moving on to the action of the rifle. This is a long stroke gas piston gun, very similar to the AK or the Masada by Magpul. Sorry, I'm a little sick. The long stroke system is known to be very rugged and durable, even if you do lose some of the cycling quality as compared to a short stroke or even direct impingement system like the standard AR. This one, though, happens to be incredibly smooth cycling, which does not surprise me in the least coming from a company like SIG.
What do you prefer?
I like this.
Which one recoiled less so? Which one was the smoother cycling?
The other one.
The other one was a little bit better?
Yeah.
What did you like more about this one?
The Fireball.
The Fireball?
The Fireball.
While it is definitely heavily related to the AR, I would actually say that it takes more from the AK family. Whereas something like the ACR, the Masada, or the Jackal are ARs that adopted AK components, I would actually say this feels a little bit more like an AK that adopted AR components. Brandon Herrera touches on this video, and I tend to agree with his introspective. And after having fired this, a Jackal, and an AK back to back to back, there's a lot of truth to be had there. Being a long stroke system, you gain two things over the conventional DI system of an AR. The first being that the gas back to the face is much more tolerable. The second being that you have no need for a recoil buffer tube in the back, making it possible to fold the firearm in half as such. With the stock, there's a little clip right here that keeps it locked folded. To unfold it, you sort of just rip it open. The only downside to it with it folding like this is that if with the cheek rest fitted, it blocks the ejection of spent rounds. So if you want to fire it with it folded, you have to remove the cheek rest. There is a company which sells an adapter to mount a buffer tube so that you could run a conventional AR stock, which is kind of cool, and still have it folded. I unfortunately do not have one. Going to the trigger, you get to my biggest gripe with the rifle. I've become a bit of a trigger snob since I've gotten into this hobby. When I first started out, this probably would have felt like an amazing trigger. But after I spent some time refining my patented trigger finger, the lack of input into it when I'm about to break the trigger bugs me. Let's show that. So go ahead, resetting it. I do want to just make sure that it's clear. There's no mag present. So go ahead and let it back up. I did not feel that. It just sort of rolled right through, doing a quick reset. It does have a very tactile and very audible reset, which I really like, but going back for the break, I feel nothing. I feel no definitive wall there. As a side note, there should be a little spring right here that would give it the feel of a two-stage trigger, but in the refurbishment of this rifle, it got misplaced at some point. The controls in the SIG are interesting to say the least. You have an ambidextrous 45-degree safety in a location very similar to an AR, however, not quite. It seems to be placed a little bit further up and a little bit further back, making it slightly awkward to activate and deactivate while holding the grip. Maybe the Swiss just have extra long opposable thumbs. Here you have the reciprocating side charging handle that can very easily be swapped side to side just with the little flip of a lever. Looking right here, you see this little lever, and I actually can't do this without looking, but just by pulling down, this pops right out, and then you can just go ahead. It does say up on the side. Make sure that you have the up side pointed up, and just like that, I have it swapped side to side. Very convenient. That is normally a part of the disassembly on this firearm. However, I will not be disassembling this firearm for two reasons. The first being that I feel others have already done it and done it better. The second being that I'm actually selling this to a buddy of mine, and at risk of losing small, very important components, I don't want to risk losing those before I send them out to him or damaging the product before I send it out to him. One little interesting aspect is that the side charging handle well is sealed with two pieces of weather stripping sandwiched together, and you have that on both sides. If you do happen to get one of these, I recommend keeping those well oiled to prevent weathering. The foregrip is pretty bog standard. It's comfortable to hold, but it lacks any functionality beyond that. There are no sling mounts, no M-lock slots. These are not M-lock slots. These are just weight reduction slots. Not even any Picatinny rails to mount anything to like a light or such. You do have a multi-selector gas port here. However, I am unfamiliar with what selections are what. However, it seems to run perfectly fine straight up and down. Going the rest of the way forward, this rifle has a full 6-inch barrel with this 3-prong flash hider capping it off. Compared to the combat version of this rifle, or even the Jackal, that typically have a shorter barrel with a muzzle device pin and welded to give you the necessary 16 inches of a rifle, this allows you to conveniently swap muzzle devices if you so choose. Topping the rifle off, you have a Picatinny rail mount up top on which I have mounted a Vortex Crossfire 1:4x24 scope with an illuminated red dot reticle, which will be pictured right here. A little on the scope. I will admit that I'm a bit of a Vortex fanboy, which is why you will see these on a lot of my firearms. My experience with their customer service has been very impressive, with the scope quality being very acceptable for the price point. This scope has only one minor flaw, That being that it is not a true 1x scope on the low setting, being just a little off. It's still very usable, but after comparing it to the Vortex Strike Eagle 1:8 with a true 1x setting, it can be mildly distracting going back and forth between the two. It's still a very nice, budget-minded combat scope. As I previously mentioned, this rifle will unfortunately be leaving my collection. Why, I hear you ask? Let me explain. There are two aspects to really look at with a firearm when you are a collector, as I consider myself to be: form and function. I would say, with the exception of this barrel, it is a very elegant rifle. But at the end of the day, I prefer a bit of function with my form. When I bought this, I had so many ideas to make it what I wanted. But after considering that I would spend just as much, if not more, in fixing this rifle than buying a completely separate rifle, I decided to sell it. At the end of the day, the 16-inch barrel is kind of dorky, the trigger is a big turnoff for me, and the lack of being able to mount anything to the foregrip are three strikes on why I am selling this rifle. However, I do look forward to seeing it in the collection of my buyer. For those of you who are curious, the buyer is another YouTuber by the name of Sea Lord Mountbatten. I'm an avid player of the game World of Warships, and I'm actually a part of his clan, Tsoff. This ship is on fire. I will be shipping it out to him shortly and will probably already be in his possession by the time this video comes out. Thanks for stopping by to take a look at my SIG 556XI, and look forward to seeing you guys in my next video, which I hope to upload in the next month, where we'll be taking a look at the Jackal, the rifle that replaced this one. Take care and see you next time. Bye!